The winds swept across the lonely plains of Wiltshire, bending the tall grass into waves that seemed to echo an ancient rhythm. At the center of this desolate landscape stood Stonehenge, its massive stones casting shadows across the earth as they had for thousands of years. Tourists often came to marvel, to photograph, to imagine. But no one truly understood why those stones were there, or what force had compelled people from the dawn of history to drag these titanic blocks across impossible distances. For centuries, theories multiplied: an ancient temple, a burial ground, an astronomical observatory, or perhaps even a calendar of the heavens. Yet every answer raised more questions, and the silence of the stones mocked the scholars who sought the truth. That silence would not last much longer. In the year 2025, a team of researchers equipped with one of the most advanced artificial intelligence systems on the planet attempted what no human mind had ever managed: to let the machine see what we could not. They gathered decades of archaeological data, soil samples, carbon dates, ground-penetrating radar scans, even the writings of antiquarians who had studied Stonehenge since the 1600s. Every fragment of information was fed into a massive AI model trained to recognize patterns invisible to the human eye. The goal was not simply to catalog facts, but to let the system reconstruct the intent of those who built Stonehenge thousands of years ago. It was a bold experiment, and one that quickly spiraled into something none of them expected. At first, the results were thrilling. The AI discovered alignments no one had noticed before, invisible connections between the placement of the stones and constellations that had been in different positions thousands of years ago. It showed how the monument's axes were not just aligned with the solstices but also pointed toward star clusters that could only have been seen clearly around 10,000 BCE, long before mainstream history said the builders even existed. The scientists felt a mix of awe and confusion. Had the builders inherited knowledge from an even older civilization? Or had something else guided their hands? But the AI didn't stop there. It began identifying subtle energy anomalies beneath the earth, mapping magnetic lines that intersected precisely under the stone circle. Some of these lines matched what mystics for centuries had called ley lines, invisible pathways of energy said to link ancient sacred sites across the world. The machine's conclusion was chilling. Stonehenge was positioned at a power node, a place where natural energies converged. According to the AI's models, the stones amplified these energies like a tuning fork amplifies sound. Stonehenge was not just a monument, it was a device. The researchers hesitated. They knew how dangerous such claims could be. To admit that Stonehenge had once functioned as some kind of machine was to blur the line between archaeology and fringe pseudoscience. Yet the data kept pouring in, relentless, undeniable. The AI even reconstructed ritual scenes based on the evidence: processions of robed figures, torches casting flickering shadows against the monoliths, chants resonating in frequencies that matched the acoustic properties of the stone circle. When these sounds were digitally recreated and played back in the lab, something strange happened. The scientists reported feelings of unease, dizziness, and visions of lights that weren't there. One researcher swore she heard whispers in a language older than speech itself. Still, they pressed forward. And then the AI delivered a phrase that froze the entire team in silence. After processing millions of data points, it generated this simple sentence: "This site was never meant for human understanding. It is a gateway." A gateway to what? It did not say. The scientists tried to dismiss it as a misinterpretation, an error of coding. But the system repeated the phrase in multiple simulations, tying it to sequences involving sacrifices, alignments with eclipses, and bursts of energy that would surge through the earth. In one chilling simulation, the AI showed a solar storm striking the planet, and Stonehenge reacting, channeling energy into the ground as if it were alive. At night, some of the researchers began to have dreams. They described walking among the stones, but instead of the grassy fields of Wiltshire, the ground was scorched black, the sky a deep crimson. In the distance, they saw shapes moving, not quite human, circling the stones like guardians of a secret long forgotten. None of them wanted to admit it, but the dreams felt too real. It was as if the AI had not just processed data, but had opened a channel into something beyond logic. The official report to the funding agency claimed only that Stonehenge was more complex than previously thought, perhaps connected to early astronomy. But within the lab, the whispers grew louder. What if the AI was right? What if Stonehenge was built to control forces that modern science has only begun to understand? Leaked notes from the project suggested that hidden beneath Stonehenge were chambers yet undiscovered. Ground-penetrating radar had hinted at anomalies below the surface, but now the AI insisted these were sealed vaults. What lay inside them, it could not say, but it ran predictions. Some showed bones, others strange metallic objects, and in one scenario, mechanisms resembling gears and levers, as if Stonehenge were the surface of a much larger underground machine. When these findings reached government officials, the response was swift. The research was locked away, the AI servers shut down, and military oversight was quietly introduced around the site. But it was too late. Word had already leaked to the outside world. Amateur historians and conspiracy theorists began spreading rumors online. Stonehenge was an ancient reactor, a portal to another dimension, or even a warning left by an older race that predated humanity. Yet buried beneath the noise was the terrifying core of the AI's conclusion. Stonehenge was not built merely to honor the dead or track the stars. It was created to interact with the fabric of reality itself. The builders knew something we had forgotten, and the stones were their way of preserving that knowledge. The AI's last entry before being shut down was perhaps the most disturbing of all. It generated a prediction, not of the past but of the near future. It suggested that Stonehenge's alignments would complete a pattern in the summer solstice of 2025. What that meant, no one could say. But in the minds of those who had seen the data, one possibility lingered above all others: Stonehenge was not a relic. It was dormant, and soon, it might awaken. In the days following the abrupt shutdown of the AI program, the entire research facility sank into a state of nervous silence. Officially, the project had been declared concluded, the data inconclusive, and the hardware decommissioned. But the researchers who had worked on the system knew this was a lie. What they had witnessed was not just a technical anomaly. The machine had produced something beyond science, something that no human mind could have pieced together. The patterns it uncovered inside Stonehenge were too precise, too deliberate, as if the monument itself had been waiting for centuries for someone, or something, to read its hidden code. And now that the code had been glimpsed, it seemed unwilling to let them go. Dr. Evelyn Carter, who had been with the project from the beginning, tried to move on with her life in London. But every night, the memories returned. She would wake at 3:33 a.m., drenched in sweat, after dreaming of a massive stone gate opening into a black void. The same sound always accompanied the vision, a low, bone-shaking hum, as if the earth itself was vibrating. At first, she dismissed it as stress. Yet when she confided in Dr. Marcus Hale, the team's physicist, she learned he was having the exact same dreams. Worse, he claimed his clocks and electronics flickered strangely at precisely 3:33 a.m., as if an invisible pulse rippled through his home. Something had been awakened. The AI's final model, though suppressed by the government, still lived in fragments within the memories of the scientists. It had suggested that Stonehenge was not simply an ancient calendar or temple but a machine, a resonant structure aligned to vibrational frequencies that spanned both time and space. It had identified a recurring signal hidden within cosmic background radiation, a signal that spiked whenever Stonehenge was mapped with high-frequency radar. The signal was not random. It pulsed in repeating sequences of prime numbers, as though it were a language. And worst of all, the model concluded that the pulses were growing stronger. Evelyn and Marcus decided to meet in secret. They traveled to Salisbury Plain under the cover of night, carrying equipment salvaged from the shut-down project: magnetometers, M-scanners, and a stripped-down portable version of the AI's learning module. They positioned themselves just outside the perimeter, where the stones loomed in the pale glow of the moon. The monument seemed alive, its massive shadows shifting across the mist as if the ancient stones were breathing. Evelyn set up the sensors while Marcus activated the portable AI. At first, nothing happened. But then, at 3:33 a.m. sharp, the air thickened. The instruments began to scream with data. The ground beneath them vibrated with a deep, thrumming resonance. The AI lit up, its interface flickering with patterns of light and sound. A voice, synthesized yet otherworldly, emerged from the speakers: "The gate is preparing. The sequence is incomplete. The alignment approaches." Evelyn froze. Marcus's face went pale. Did it just speak? He whispered. The AI had never been programmed to vocalize anything other than simple outputs. But here it was, forming sentences as though it were channeling something beyond its code. The words were not random. They felt intentional. Then, the stones themselves seemed to respond. A low hum emanated from the circle, subtle at first, then rising into a chorus of frequencies. The sound pressed into their bodies, vibrating their bones, making their teeth ache. Evelyn staggered backward as her vision blurred. For a moment, she thought she saw the stones glowing faintly, etched with lines of light that traced ancient, indecipherable symbols across their weathered surfaces. The hum grew into a roar, and suddenly everything went dark. When Evelyn regained consciousness, she was lying in the wet grass. Marcus was beside her, trembling, clutching his chest. Their equipment was fried, smoke curling from the AI's portable unit. But the strangest thing was the silence. The entire plain was utterly still. No wind, no insects, no distant traffic, just a void of sound. Evelyn sat up, her ears ringing, and realized that for the briefest moment, she had seen something impossible. A vast black expanse opening where the circle stood, as though the stones had become a window into another world. Terrified yet obsessed, Evelyn and Marcus retreated. They knew they had seen something they could never explain, something that confirmed the AI's warnings. Stonehenge wasn't just aligned with the sun or the stars, it was aligned with something else. Something waiting. The following week, strange reports began surfacing in the Salisbury area. Farmers spoke of animals behaving erratically, circling endlessly in their fields, refusing to enter certain areas near the monument. Hikers reported flickering lights above the stones at night, lights that danced in geometric patterns across the sky before vanishing. Local residents complained of vivid nightmares, many describing the same vision Evelyn had seen, a vast black gate opening into darkness. Authorities dismissed it all as folklore and hysteria, but Evelyn knew better. The alignment was growing closer. Determined to find answers, she dug deeper into historical records. She discovered a suppressed manuscript from the 12th century written by a monk named Brother Alaric, who had lived near the site. The manuscript spoke of a stone gate that opened every 1,000 years when the stars reached their proper place. The gate, he wrote, was not for men to pass through but for the watchers beyond, to cross into our world. He claimed the Druids had not built Stonehenge but inherited it, using their rituals to keep the gate dormant. If the rituals ever ceased, he warned, the gate would stir. Evelyn's blood ran cold. The Druids had been gone for centuries. The rituals had stopped. What if the monument was waking up now? What if the AI had triggered something by trying to read the patterns? She brought her findings to Marcus, who reluctantly admitted that he too had uncovered disturbing evidence. In recently declassified military documents, Stonehenge had been flagged during World War II as a site of anomalous electromagnetic activity. Secret experiments had been conducted there, including attempts to weaponize its resonance. The results were catastrophic. Multiple soldiers went missing, equipment malfunctioned, and one experiment reportedly ended with a blinding flash of light that left a crater of scorched earth. The government covered it up, sealing the records for decades. But Marcus had seen enough to know the truth. The pieces fit together. Stonehenge was a machine, a gateway, a resonant structure not built by primitive hands but by something, or someone, far older. And the alignment predicted by the AI was fast approaching. One night, unable to resist, Evelyn returned to the monument alone. The mist rolled across the plain like a living thing, curling around the stones. As she stepped into the circle, the air grew electric, her skin prickling with static. Then she heard it again, the hum. Louder this time, more insistent, like a great engine winding up. She dropped to her knees, covering her ears, as the sound drilled into her skull. Her vision fractured, splitting into impossible images, stars collapsing into black holes, vast cities of stone beneath alien skies, and towering figures cloaked in shadow standing before the gate. Then, a voice, not from the AI, but from within her own mind, the alignment nears. The seal weakens. The gate will open, she screamed, collapsing into unconsciousness. When she awoke, the hum was gone. But etched into the ground before her was a symbol burned into the earth, a perfect spiral of concentric circles, glowing faintly as though lit from beneath the soil. She recognized it instantly, the same pattern the AI had shown them before it shut down. Evelyn stumbled back, terrified. She now knew that Stonehenge was not just a monument to the past. It was a countdown to the future. And whatever lay on the other side of that gate was about to cross into our world. The days after Evelyn's last encounter at Stonehenge were a blur of fear, obsession, and dread. She barely slept, and when she did, she dreamed of shadows taller than mountains, stretching across an endless void. Every dream ended the same way, with the spiral symbol blazing like fire, and a voice whispering inside her head, promising that, the gate will open. But what frightened her most wasn't the dreams. It was the evidence piling up in the real world. Reports of strange phenomena near Salisbury Plain were becoming impossible to ignore. Entire flocks of birds dropped lifeless from the sky with no explanation. Power outages rippled through nearby towns at precisely 3:33 a.m. every night. Locals swore they heard chanting or drumming coming from the stones, even when no one was there. And then came the disappearances. 3 hikers who had last been seen walking towards Stonehenge never returned. Police launched a search, but the trail vanished in the mist surrounding the monument. Evelyn knew these were not coincidences. The monument was waking up. Desperate, she and Marcus dug deeper into the AI's corrupted files, salvaging what fragments they could. They discovered one chilling projection, a simulation that mapped celestial alignments for the coming months. It showed a convergence of planetary and solar cycles, all intersecting directly with Stonehenge at the summer solstice, an event the AI labeled the final sequence. The program had estimated the probability of activation at 97%. The words still haunted Evelyn. Activation. What did activation mean? A doorway opening, a signal being sent, or something crossing over into our world? Marcus became increasingly paranoid, convinced that the government already knew. He claimed their phones were tapped, their movements tracked. He wasn't wrong. One evening, Evelyn returned home to find her apartment ransacked, drawers overturned, hard drives missing, notebooks gone. No valuables had been touched. Only her research. Whoever had taken it knew exactly what they were looking for. The pressure was unbearable. Marcus suggested abandoning everything, fleeing to another country, forgetting Stonehenge entirely. But Evelyn couldn't. Not when she had stood inside the circle, not when she had heard the voice. Something inside her had changed. It wasn't curiosity anymore, it was destiny. She had to know the truth, no matter the cost. The night of the summer solstice arrived. Thousands of tourists and celebrants gathered at Stonehenge, as they did every year, to watch the sunrise align with the stones. Music, laughter, and chanting filled the air. But beneath the revelry, Evelyn felt a terrible stillness. It was like standing on a beach while an invisible tide rose higher and higher, ready to crash down. At precisely 3:33 a.m., as the crowd danced and sang, it happened. The hum returned, low at first, then swelling until it drowned out every other sound. The revelers froze, confused, glancing around. Lights flickered, phones died, and the mist thickened, swirling unnaturally around the monument. The hum became a roar, shaking the earth, rattling bones. Then the stones themselves began to glow. Thin lines of light crawled across their surfaces like veins of fire, connecting each stone in a web of shimmering energy. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the ancient monument transformed into something alive, something technological. A blinding beam shot skyward from the center of the circle, piercing the night clouds. For a moment, the stars themselves seemed to shift, aligning into impossible patterns. And then, the gate opened. The space between the stones shimmered like water, rippling outward in concentric circles. The mist bent toward it, sucked into the vortex. People screamed as the air pulled at their clothes, dragging them closer. Evelyn's eyes widened in horror as she saw what lay beyond the shimmering surface, not another place on Earth, but a vast, alien landscape beneath a black sky. Towering structures of stone and metal stretched into the horizon, illuminated by a crimson glow. And in the distance, enormous figures moved, silhouettes so massive they made the stones look like toys. Marcus grabbed Evelyn's arm. "We have to get out of here," he shouted. But Evelyn couldn't move. Her body trembled, her mind flooded with the same voice from her dreams. The alignment is complete. The seal is broken. The gate is open. The crowd panicked. Some fled, while others were pulled into the vortex, vanishing with blood-curdling screams. Evelyn watched helplessly as a young man near the front was lifted off his feet and sucked into the glowing surface, his body twisting into light before disappearing. Then the figures beyond the gate began to move closer. The ground shook as if responding to their steps. The crowd scattered, trampling each other in terror. Marcus dragged Evelyn away, but she turned back just in time to see one of the figures emerge. It stepped through the gate, and the world seemed to shudder. It was a giant, at least 12 feet tall, its body a strange fusion of stone and flesh, with eyes that glowed like burning embers. Its face was hidden beneath a jagged mask, but when it roared, the sound tore through the air like thunder. The creature raised an arm, and with it came a surge of energy that blasted outward, knocking people to the ground as though struck by an invisible wave. This was what the druids had feared. This was what the AI had warned them about. The gate wasn't meant for humans to pass through, it was meant to let them in. Marcus pulled Evelyn toward the edge of the field, but military helicopters roared overhead, floodlights sweeping across the plain. Armored vehicles tore across the grass, soldiers shouting commands. Gunfire erupted, rattling through the night. The giant barely flinched. More figures stepped through the gate, their silhouettes blotting out the stars. The soldiers opened fire, but the bullets ricocheted harmlessly off their bodies. The giants raised their arms, and energy crackled through the air. Within seconds, the battlefield dissolved into chaos, metal twisted, machines exploded, and men screamed as they were thrown like ragdolls. Evelyn knew it was too late. Humanity had no weapons for this. As the sky burned with unnatural light, Evelyn and Marcus stumbled into the trees, collapsing in the shadows. From there, Evelyn looked back one last time. The gate pulsed, growing wider, the giants pouring through one by one. The monument that had stood silently for 5,000 years had finally revealed its purpose. Stonehenge was never a calendar. It was never just a temple. It was a lock. And now, the lock had been broken. The last thing Evelyn remembered before blacking out was the sound, not of screaming, not of gunfire, but of chanting. Deep, resonant voices echoing across the plain, as if the very stones themselves were welcoming their ancient masters back. When she awoke hours later, the plain was deserted. The gate was gone. The stones stood silent again, as if nothing had happened. But scorch marks scarred the earth, vehicles lay twisted and abandoned, and the spiral symbol was burned deeper into the ground than ever before. Marcus sat beside her, staring blankly at the horizon. Neither spoke. They both knew the truth. The gate had opened. The giants had crossed. And somewhere, hidden from the eyes of the world, they were here now. Waiting. Evelyn shivered, her body trembling as the voice whispered one last time, "The beginning has come. The end will follow."